Hey everyone, HeatherAsh Amara here, author of Warrior Goddess Training, and today is our Ask HeatherAsh August 5th session. I've got a couple great questions to share, so let me get I'm going to try it with a headset. Let's see if it's a little bit better today. Once again, I'm out in the boonies, so not too far out in the boonies. I'm outside of New York City at a really beautiful campground. You can see how green it is out there. Look at that. And ready to share some answers with you. I was just going back through some of our other posts and grabbing some questions from those so we can answer those today. Thanks so much for everybody for joining me. So again, August 5th, Ask HeatherAsh. I'm here for any questions that you have. It can be personal, it can be about work, it can be about anything. We've had some really fabulous conversations, and I'll just be with you for about 15 to 20 minutes. And if you have a question that doesn't get answered here, or you want to write in a question rather than ask it here, feel free to send me an email. Go ahead and write my email address down. Hey Kim, hey Michelle, welcome. Hey Sarah. So there's my email if you want to send a question rather than ask one. You're welcome to chat a question anytime while we're here. I've got two questions to start with. Let me go grab those. So there's a question asked a couple weeks ago, which was, how do you reclaim your positive energy when everyday stress comes into your life? And that connects to the other question that I have for today. So this is perfect. So the question is, how do you reconnect to your happiness through the stress of everyday life? And what I've found is that as we engage in our life and with the to-do list and with the many distractions that we have in our lives, that it's really easy to put our focus on the list of things to do, or the things that are not done, or the places that we're feeling overwhelmed. And we have to remember that every day we are getting more and more data than we've ever processed before as humans. And so there's a tremendous amount of information that's coming through all the time now, and an expectation that we get things done quickly, which is impossible. Like, we cannot do everything on our to-do list. There's no way. So one of the things that I'm always reminding myself that I found to be really helpful is that you can only do one thing at a time. And your to-do list is never going to be done. So it's not that, you can be happy once the to-do list is done. You get to learn how to bring the happiness into all the challenges. And that I read what I thought was funny at the time, but it's fascinating, article a while ago about stress, that stress itself is actually not too big an issue for humans, because we're kind of designed to be in stress and then, have waves of where things are stressful and things are not stressful. But what's really hurting humans right now, modern humans right now, is the stress of stress, being stressed out about being stressed. So with that in mind, if you can not feed the stress, so to understand there's going to be stress in your life, and you can use it against yourself in a way, or you can just say, here's stress. How do I come back into this moment, breathe into my body, and ask myself, what's the next step? What's the next step? Not, I'm stressed, I shouldn't be stressed, what's wrong, I'm overwhelmed, there's too much to do, listing all the things that you have to do. It's so easy for our mind to spin us out. And you can also teach your mind to unravel. So instead of, I'll never get this done, I never have enough time, how am I going to do this, to say, I just need to do the next thing. What's the most important place for me to put my energy right now? How do I breathe and stay present? So, little baby steps really, really help. So welcome to Jill. Hey Jill, and Melissa and Miriam, and everybody else that is on live right now. So the second question that came in, we'll keep talking about this idea of how to hold your happiness in stress. But the second question that came in today via email was about how to stay centered, basically, how to deal with something like what happened this weekend in the United States. So in one day, in a 24-hour period, we had 2 mass shootings and something like 30 people that died. And so the question was, how do I retain my equanimity, my presence, my balance when there's this huge upheaval happening around me in my communities, and then also dealing with family stuff as well. So that balance of when there's a lot of chaos happening in the culture around us, and then there's also stuff that we're dealing with the family. How do we stay centered in that? And so let me start with the first part, which is around the mass shootings. So there's a couple of ways that I work with things that are challenging in that sense, that are collective trauma, because that's really what we're dealing with right now, is we're dealing with the collective trauma. Hey, Kiki, so glad to see you too. And that the collective trauma is increasing. So we are having basic racist, terrorist activities that are happening through the mass shootings. And we're also just having more violence in general, and especially around this particular type. And unfortunately, things like mass shootings tend to go in waves because people will copycat each other, and it'll go through a phase. Remember, there was a time where we had a ton of drive-by shootings and then a ton of raid shootings. So they'll go in cycles, but this one's being fed. And so what we really need to look at is, what action can we take and how can we educate ourselves? It helps to understand why things are happening. It's not random that we're having so many mass shootings. So there's a combination of people are living, there's more and more people, and whenever you have more and more people in urban spaces, there's more violence, period. We have easy access to guns in this country. And there is a culture of hate that's being promoted right now, unfortunately, by our government. So there's a lot around immigration and around racism that's really coming up. So the good news about that is that we have an opportunity to heal it, but that doesn't mean it's going to get better before it gets, it's going to get better. It often means it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we're seeing the ramifications of a lot of US history right now being acted out, and also just dream of the planet violence. And so the first thing that I do in situations like this is I first educate myself around what's the larger context. So like I just did a tiny bit of research today around how much gun violence has gone up in the United States, how many shootings there have been, how the US ranks in regards to other countries, and what are other countries doing. Okay, so I got really interested in that because there's a solution. Other countries have found a solution to this, to mass shootings. And so what is the solution? And so I started researching that, and I found governments that were buying guns, semi-automatic and automatic rifles specifically, from citizens. And they would have huge buys of guns. And that within it was months, I think, there was the shootings and suicide went down by half. Okay, mass shootings and suicide by gun went down by half. This was in Australia. Britain did a similar thing. The shootings went down. So there's places that it can feel really helpless when big things are happening in the world and there's nothing we can really do, it feels like, but you can educate yourself to learn, what have other people done? What are ways that you can take action? So you can write to your Congress and to your senators. You can educate yourself so you're more informed. You can also, so that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is understanding that while the media is promoting fear, violence, there's also thousands and millions of people that are, doing their lives happily all over the country. And so when we start fixating on the problem and we forget that there's also millions of people that are not being shot at right now. Yes, we have a problem that we need to deal with, but if we only start to look at the problem without the context, it can feel really scary and really overwhelming. And the media is going to focus on the fear aspect. It doesn't help us to go into fear to try and solve problems. It doesn't help us to go into fear to stay centered. If we go into fear, we're going to get unbalanced. If we look at this as just this completely random thing, it's easy to get unbalanced. It's not a random thing, and there's a solution, and it's going to take a while, I think, before the country decides to go for a solution. So there's things that are going to be transforming, and it's going to take time. So how to stay centered? One is, whenever you read a media thing that's upsetting, look at, feel into, why is it upsetting to you personally? And there's a difference between, I found, between just upset for the people that were killed, for how much violence there is happening, for the incredible amount of racism that's happening, or that's showing up right now. It's been happening, it's just showing up now. That just the emotion about the present experience comes and goes. Okay, so it may last a while. There may be anger, there may be sadness, there may be grief. Just let it move. When we have the stories about it, that's when it starts getting stickier. Okay, so we want to keep clearing out our own personal stories around our past history. Okay, so we're going to have our opinions, we're going to have our preferences. When I'm talking about the stories, what I'm talking about is the places inside of each of us where we have old emotions and old storylines from our own personal history that are getting resonated because of current things. Okay, and those current things might be mass shootings. The current things might be you're hanging out with your family and the old family dynamics are starting to show up, or all of the above. When we get curious and step back and say, how is this impacting me personally and causing me to feel helpless or scared or furious in a way that's my old content coming to the surface, there's an opportunity to clean the old content then. It doesn't mean you're not going to take action about what's arising, but there's a way that we can use everything that's happening then to clean what's showing up inside of us, our frustration, our hopelessness, our rage, our own inner violence towards ourselves or towards others, whether that's mentally or verbally or emotionally, that we honor that place inside of us as well. When I say honor that, I don't mean follow it. I mean that we acknowledge, that's a better word, that the violence that we're seeing outside, or the struggles that we're seeing outside, or the victimization that we're seeing outside of ourselves, whatever it is, or the judgment or the rejection, whatever it is that we're seeing outside of ourselves, the places that it takes us out, there's often / almost always a place where you have personal content to clean up as well. And so you can use it as an opportunity to clean, and an opportunity to then get clear about what action can you take. Those of us that are controllers, that have that tend to control or want things to be a particular way, this can be more challenging. So this is something to look at. Is also look at the strategies. So are you a distractor? Are you a controller? Are you an isolator? Are you a pleaser? And anytime that those strategies also get twanged, that can also cause us to go really out of balance. So if you notice yourself, let's say you're interacting with your family and you start feeling really uncentered, to ask yourself, am I going into an old strategy? Am I trying to control the people around me? Am I trying to please? Am I wanting to isolate and remove myself and protect myself? Am I just distracting and not really being with what's happening, what's going on? And that's what we want to look at. Hey everyone, hey Sky. Hi, Donna. Hey, Deb. Hey, Tara. Lisa. Hey, Marilyn. Good to see you here. Awesome. So it's not an easy, like there is no easy answer. How do I stay centered in the current turmoil and with family stuff? It's really about the mindfulness and coming back to your own process and then understanding the larger process. So the other thing that we also need to be really mindful of, I found, is especially in election years, which we're coming into an election year next year. We're in primaries right now for the Democratic race, that there's also there could be a lot of upset in the collective, because unfortunately the way the politics mostly works right now is a lot of the drama and finger pointing, and because of that, the collective starts getting more and more wobbly. So it's just a really important thing to understand, and to keep bringing your energy field, as I think about it, close to your body. Like, you're not responsible for everything out here. You're responsible for this. And what's also going to make you feel more centered, more present, more apart, in a good way, connected, is knowing what actions to take and when to take action, when not to take action, and when to take action, and learning the difference. So there's places we can take action. There's places we actually can't take action. We can think about it and worry about it, but there's actually no action to take. And so that's what we want to keep looking at, is what's true here of where I can take an action, where I can have an effect, versus what's the truth around what's not mine to do. Okay? To really understand differences. So welcome to Melissa and Janine and Hidea. Hey, good to see you, hon. All right, any other questions? So I am completely open to any questions you have. Hey, Janine, about anything. So it can be family, work, your spiritual path, business, and I'll just, sharing the grief, sending love and blessings to all. May we infuse the world with such. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and that's another thing that I found to be really helpful, is that if you're really struggling with something that's happened in the collective or your family, but let's say with the collective, that there's been something difficult that's affected your community or affected you, and or is trouble, brings up grief, to not pretend that there's not grief, to actually honor the grief, to have ceremony, to do ritual. So you can do an honoring of the people that were killed. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself feel the pain, because there's pain, and that's okay. And then be really open to, and where is this touching my own personal pain that I need to address and clean from my past. Okay. So I had an interesting experience. I wrote about it a little bit on Facebook, and I'm going to write more about it. But if there's, and I'm open to questions, so keep sharing questions, but I'll just share those. I was in the Airstream yesterday. It was like midnight, leaving the Philadelphia airport, and I turned a corner too quickly, and I got the Airstream jammed, and had a lot of help. But it was fascinating to me, because I was upset, but I wasn't really upset. I was just like, I just made a mistake, and it's a bummer because that hurts. And I also just had this surrendered, I made a mistake. There's nothing, the truth was there was nothing I could do. It was done. I had scraped the Airstream, it was done. And so in the 2 hours that it took all of us that were there, the people that were helping me, the supervisors of the parking lot and AAA, to figure out the way to navigate myself out of the situation, I kept coming back to, how do you feel? Is there anything else up? Is there any other upset? And it was just pretty clean. It was just mistake, period. There wasn't a lot of judgment. Actually, there was no judgment. There wasn't shame. There was just this sense of mistake. What do I do to fix it? And this good reminder, what I really took out of last night was this really good reminder for me to just slow down. And that's what I did last night, is I didn't rush to try and fix it. I just stopped and just really sat with it, called in somebody who I thought was an expert. The expert basically said, damage is done. There's nothing I can do. Get, like just back out. So it was good to get more information. And when I finally got unstuck and got on the road, to just realize, it's everybody's safe. There's cosmetic damage to my trailer. It's not that big of a deal. And I just felt all this incredible love and gratitude for my life, for the people that came to help me, for the fact that I didn't have to go into huge judgment against myself to fix the problem. And I think so many of us are trained that when you make a mistake, your first act is to punish yourself for said mistake. And it's not necessary. That's really what I want to share. It's just not necessary. And it takes a while to undo that old pattern. Lisa, when you get centered and go back into a toxic work environment, how do you keep calm? Especially in a chaotic environment with some bullying behaviors. I just want to go in my office and shut the door. Yeah, I so understand that. So it's realizing that you're going to have to center over and over and over again. It's not enough, and you know this, all of us know this, right? But we think it should be. Like, it's not enough to center yourself once and then go back into work. You're going to get to play with, how do you center yourself? How do you create little ceremonies and rituals or breaks in your day so that you center over and over and over again? So it may be that you can't shut the door